you already know this, but I've got some issues. One of the biggest issues that I have in my life, I think sometimes there are things that are like bigger that affect everything else. And I think one for me is that I have trust issues. Now, if you do Enneagram stuff, if you've ever looked at that, or if you're going, dude, what's Enneagram? Either way, I'll tell you, I'm an Enneagram 8. This means that there are a few things about my personality that you probably already know, but for good or bad, plays out in this. So I'm a protector. I want to protect my people. You are my people. My family is my people. I want to protect people and take care of them. I'm outspoken. I'm a little bit loud. And I have control issues. And so my desire for everything to be good and okay leads me to have some trust issues. Why else do you think we talked about the Gospel of Luke for like 87 weeks? And it always came back to the idea of trust. Well, I know that about myself. And you probably have different issues, but I think trusting God is one of the most difficult things that we can do. Like, think about it. I'm going to trust that everything is going to be okay based on the idea that God, who I can't see, is going to affect all the things that I can see. Trust is a difficult thing. It just straight up is. And yet the Bible continues to challenge us over and over and over again to rethink our idea of trust, to really think about, do you trust God with everything, or do you not trust? And so I want us to look at 3 chapters in the Old Testament. I know we've been in the Gospel of Luke and we've had a couple kind of rando weeks, but I really want us over the next 3 weeks to look at 1 Kings chapters 17, 18, and 19, and really see what God is doing in the midst of all that. 1 Kings 17, 18, and 19 may be, aside from stories of Jesus, my favorite passage in the Bible as far as story goes. I talk about 2 Corinthians 4 being one of my favorites. This group of chapters here really challenge me and really inspire me. So I hope they do the same for you. And this week, I want to start by looking at 1 Kings chapter 17 and really taking a look at where they're at in the story. And it's going to set the stage for 18 and 19, but it also is a really powerful story about trust in its own right. So check this out. In chapter 17, starting in verse 1, it says, "Now Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab," who was the king, "As the Lord, the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word." So right out of the gate, Elijah tells the king, Elijah, this prophet of God, tells King Ahab, it's not going to rain for a long time. And except if I say for it to rain. It's a power move. Verse 2. "Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah, 'Leave here, turn eastward, and hide in the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan. You will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there.'" So Elijah goes and tells the king, hey, it's not going to rain except when I tell you it's going to rain because of the things you've done. And then God says, hey, thanks for telling him that. Appreciate you taking that word. But now my plan for you is to go and hide in this ravine and drink from this brook and then have birds bring you food, right? And if I'm Elijah, I'm going, is that the plan? This is what you got? like you've just really offended the king, like made him mad. You've told him that all the crops, all the food supply is going to dry up, and you are the one that has the power to make it rain. So then God directs you to go hide. Look at what it says, verse 5. So he did what the Lord had told him. He went to the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan and stayed there. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. God provides. In this crazy situation where God has asked Elijah to trust him, he provides. He always does. Well, look at what happens in verse 7. Sometime later, the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. Then the word of the Lord came to him, "Go at once to Zarephath in the region of Sidon and stay there. I have directed a widow there to supply you with food." So he went to Zarephath. When he came to the town gate, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, "Would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink?" As she was going to get it, he called, "And bring me, please, a piece of bread." "As surely as the Lord your God lives," she replied, "I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I'm gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." So God tells Elijah, after this brook dries up, the one that has been sustaining Elijah, he says, "Okay, go to Zarephath now and find this widow." And Elijah says, "Okay, sounds good." And like everything's worked out so far. Ravens bringing food, check. The brook providing water, check. Everything's been great so far. So why wouldn't he trust that God was going to provide for him? Well, he comes across this widow. He finds her, asks for a drink and some food. Probably hungry. Don't know how far that journey is. But he's probably tired. And she says, "Well, I don't really have much. In fact, I'm taking these sticks to go home, make a meal, eat it with my son, and then we're going to die." Like it's on the agenda. Like, gather sticks, ding. Build fire, ding. Cook some bread, ding. Die, ding. It's a weird situation. I guess she's feeling so destitute that like she knows it's coming. She knows it's going to happen. And it's freaking her out. Verse 13, Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said. But first make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have, and bring it to me, and then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." Okay? Elijah says, "Go ahead, go make this bread, bring it back to me. We're good." And that jar of oil and flour won't be used up until rain comes. Like whenever rain comes, that's going to stop. It'll stop being the never-ending jar of flour and oil. But until then, you've got as much as you need. Now, the woman here, what else is she going to do? Die? So she doesn't really have a whole lot of options. Her only option is to trust God. That's it. Otherwise, everything ends. But she decides to trust. In verse 15, she went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. For the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. All right, so she's provided for. God provides once again. God is trustworthy, and things are going in the right direction. But it doesn't usually stay that way, does it? Look at verse 17. Sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house became ill. He grew worse and worse and finally stopped breathing. She said to Elijah, "What do you have against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son?" And there's some interesting things going on there. Like, is this a karmic type of belief system where she's going, hey, if I do bad things and have done bad things, then it will come back to haunt me? I don't know. Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son? Like, is this payback for the wrong things that I've done? Verse 19, give me your son, Elijah replied. He took him from her arms, carried him to the upper room where he was staying, and he laid him on his bed. Then he cried out to the Lord, Lord my God, have you brought tragedy even on this widow I am staying with by causing her son to die? Then he stretched himself out on the boy 3 times and cried out to the Lord, Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him. The Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life returned to him, and he lived. Elijah picked up the child and carried him down from the room into the house. He gave him to his mother and said, look, your son's alive. And then the woman said to Elijah, now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth. So Elijah is having this crazy journey here, right? He started out being God's messenger to the king. Hey, it's not going to rain. Then God takes him to this place, provides food and water for him, shelter, and he stays there until the brook dries up. And then God provides again by leading him to this widow's house. The widow doesn't have enough to give him, so God provides again by having this jar of flour and jar of oil never run out. And then after that point and all that stuff, like that's trusting God in all those things is a pretty crazy deal. But Elijah continues on, and this widow's son dies. Just dies. It says he stops breathing. Like sometimes, you wonder, are they really asleep and they just didn't get it? Like, no, he stopped breathing. When you stop breathing, you die. So she freaks out. Why wouldn't she freak out? Seems totally natural to me. Everything's been going well, but now it's almost like her sin has caught up to her. Do you ever feel like that? And so Elijah takes the body of this boy and takes him up to the upper room, prays over him, asks God to give life back to this boy, and he wakes up. He wakes up. This is just another example of the power of the God that we serve, but I think we've got to look at it not from who God is, but who we are. We have so many doubts and so many wonderings like, okay, God, you got us through last March and all the craziness of that. God, you got us through the summer when things were spiking, but everything was shut down, but everything wasn't shut down and it was weird. And through the fall where everything went bonkers with COVID and politics and everything else. And now we're here in February, and here in Austin this weekend, it is so ridiculously cold. And like, I don't know, like, what else is going to happen here, God? And I think we sit in that from time to time and wonder, God, what are you doing? And we are the ones that have the problem. You see, the widow has no choice but to trust. And I feel like we depend on ourselves far too often. Far too often. And so I want to challenge you and encourage you today to be someone that trusts. And trusts in God despite the other things that you have in your life that seemingly take care of you. Put your faith and trust in God, the one that provides food when there is no food, the one that provides materials when there is no one else, when there is no other way, when death is certain. God is the one that swoops in and brings life. And so I want to challenge you this week to put your trust and your faith in God. We're going to continue walking through this series of chapters here with Elijah, and I hope that you'll be inspired to trust in the same way that he does. That God provides, No matter the situation, no matter the circumstances, whether we're out of food or whether death is knocking at the door, God provides. Praise be to God for him giving us exactly what we need. Put your faith and trust in God this week. See you next week.